Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, I'm all from Roosters Brewery. With me is. Sorry. with me is. Right,
I'm Daniel, and I'm from Excel Brewing.
I'm Katie, manager at Brewdog, used to work at the Maltings.
And I'm Colin Strong, I'm currently head brewer at Salt Beer Factory in Saltaire.
We're all brewing together here at Roosters today. We wanted to make a beer that kind of generates exposure to mental health issues that I think are prevalent and within the industry, whether it's on the brewing side or on the trade side. Katie will explain the sort of catalyst to all this, really.
Yes, in April this year, my friend and colleague sadly committed suicide. He worked in the hospitality industry at Maltings in York. Really like family-run, tight-knit pub. It wasn't like set in stone. It was like having a lot of problems, really. It was quite hard to like gauge. He always was like the most positive person to be like working around. Everybody like wanted to do a shift with Joe. Everybody like wanted to go for a drink with him after work. And then he sadly committed suicide with not much signs or signals. It was a really tough time for us all really in the community, especially at the Maltings, like such a close like family. It's like really weird. Like Sean like looked after us all and still does.
I think it was was it April this year?
Yeah, in April.
So it was April this year, and Sean from the Maltings actually posted something on Twitter regarding Joe, and Sean sort of wears his heart on his sleeve as well, I think, it's fair to say. And I'd read it in the morning and I'd come to work and had been, it had kind of resonated with me and been on the back of my mind all day. And it wasn't until I got home where it really did affect me. I never knew Joe.
Yeah, Joe was only like 29. Sadly, like his funeral was on his like 30th birthday, and he was like. It was crazy because he would have never imagined like so many people would have been there to celebrate his life. I've never seen like so many people like there, and it was weirdly like such like a beautiful like day. Like we all had like the best celebration of his life ever, and I wish you could have been there to like see how many people like loved him, because he really did like light up every room. Yeah, it was so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, from what Sean had put on his original tweet and what you just said, Katie, like I say, it resonated with me because I've personally been struggling with anxiety for I think about 6 or 7 years. I went to the doctor about 3 years ago, and about 2.5 years ago I actually took the decision to start taking medication to try and help me cope with it, and had some therapy. Not many people knew about my anxiety, apart from those who were close to me, especially at work, my dad and my brother, and my wife at home. But I just felt compelled to kind of open up on Twitter as well, to make sure that people understand, anybody else who's out there who may be suffering with a mental illness, that there are people out there willing to listen if you do want to open up. So I shared my kind of troubles, if you like, on Twitter, and I think Cole, you then shared yours.
Yeah, so it really resonated with me. I'd had a few years where I wouldn't have said I was enormously stressed, but in retrospect I was enormously stressed, and it was causing me an awful lot of anxiety. I used to have quite regular anxiety and panic attacks at or after work. There was a certain spell where just hearing the name of another person who worked in the building with me would literally send a shiver down my spine, and I had to go and sit outside and catch my breath. And that went on for a long time, and then the anxiety sort of built, and I really failed to deal with it. It started to manifest in depression. I became really withdrawn. I stopped sort of socialising. Wasn't really talking to my wife a lot about it. I almost completely shut down, to the point where I'd start having suicidal thoughts quite regularly. And yeah, I think the long sort of build up of it, my brain wasn't really doing what I needed from it, and it ended up with me having quite a serious work accident, which actually led to me sort of dealing with it down the line. But then when I saw what had happened to Joe at the Maltings, it really resonated, because I think mental health problems in the industry are probably a lot more prevalent than anyone lets on or tries to share. And it really resonated then when Ollie opened up on Twitter, that I felt that it was appropriate that I shared my problems as well, as if nothing else, to sort of be able to say to people, well, you know, it does help to share, it does help to communicate about these things, and to try and sort of stand behind Ollie, stand behind everyone at the Maltings. I couldn't really imagine what they must be going through, and to try and get people in the industry to open up and talk a little bit more about these sorts of things.
I think then, and from there, Dan, you were...
Yeah, and you know, I've sort of, I think anybody that follows me on social media knows that there have been multiple sort of dark periods in my life, and sort of my struggles with depression and stuff started quite a long time ago now, and unfortunately, from sort of my family's and my point of view, I had to get to the very edge of the sort of the cliff, as it were, where I sort of made a cry for help attempt to kill myself just over 10 years ago now. I was very lucky in the fact that my family were very understanding and very quick to act, and I went into a very long period of therapy under the care of a mental health institution. Well, not really institution, really, that's a sort of mildly outdated phrase, but I spent 6 months under the care of a place in Essex, and that's where I realised that talking was the most valuable and productive way for me to recover, and it was so positive in my life to be able to talk to someone that in the last few years my Twitter account has been primarily used for me as a very cheap way of therapy and a very cheap way of getting out there how I feel. Sometimes it's purging my feelings, but a lot of the time it's about being honest and opening up yourself to a dialogue where you can talk to people. I've known you guys a long time. I think we've always been very honest with each other when it comes to that. I don't think within our friendship there's ever been a fear of stigma or anything like that. I think we've always been very honest. But I was the same on the same morning, trawling my feed and saw this tweet from Sean, and you know, having been someone that was sort of very, very close a couple of times, when you see a tweet like that, it always sort of resonates, because, you know, I never really had the whatever you need to do that last thing. But I know how the mindset of someone who gets that to that point is, and it's just an undescribable place to be. And I think without the ability to talk, without the ability to be honest, without the ability to feel that you can say things without the fear of shame or repercussion or whatever, I think it's definitely allowed me to sort of heal, move on, whatever sort of cliche you want to use, but it's still being able to discuss like this with, it doesn't even have to be people that have been at the same position or point, but people that have an open will to hear and listen
and understanding to it.
Yeah. And it's vital, and once you talk to, it's what I found amazing is once you put something out there that has a level of vulnerability and honesty, you'd be amazed how many people connect to you privately or whatever, because they are in the same position, and that's why it's so important.
For the last, I don't know, I've worked in hospitality for the last six or so years, and we were talking earlier about how like it's hard to get into like a set routine, and it's really easy to like go out for a drink or not have your eating patterns going well, like when you're in this kind of industry, and that kind of had like a knock-on effect to like my own mental health. And I went to go seek help. Spoke to my family, especially my big brother and my mum and my work colleagues, and I found it really helped me. I was on medication for a short period of time. Personally found that wasn't working for me, and I found like talking was a better healer than medication. And then obviously when my friend passed away, my mental health like took a big like dip. Like I didn't go to work for a while, and I was like really struggling to like even want to socialise with my friends and speak to my family. Like everyone was like ringing me all the time, and I just like turned my phone off, like wasn't answering. And then after a while I realised that I just need to like open up and start speaking to people, because when you shut yourself out you just make yourself feel like 1,000 times worse. And yeah, I still have like down days, especially like when you see like random memories, or when you just have like a rubbish week at work. But I know now like to either like pick up the phone or just go for a chat with like one of my friends. Don't just go to the pub and sit there on your own feeling sorry for yourself, because it's at the end of the day you're just going to make yourself feel like 20 times worse.
Yeah, I can relate to that, all of that really. I personally, my anxiety sort of came on. I think I've been it's been there for about 6 or 7 years, but I didn't really know what it was. It coincided really with taking on Roosters and my role, maybe doing a role that I'd never really done before in terms of having to manage not only people but certain aspects of the business. Around the same time I became a dad for the first time, and things kind of changed quite rapidly. And like you said, mentioned about routine, I am a person who likes routine, and if these sort of huge factors sort of came and changed things, and I wasn't really ready for it, I don't think. And I noticed that I was feeling a real weight on my chest a lot of the time, and feeling tired and everything. And I didn't have a clue what it was. I just thought, well, that's what happens when you become a dad, or that's what happens. This is it. You take a business on, It's just what happens. Everyone must go through it. And I really kind of, I didn't discuss it for about 3 years or so. And it got to the point where everything kind of built up, and I had no idea what to do. And in fact, I was out. I had to go run an errand for work, and I went out in the car one day and I had the radio on, and there was a lady on it talking. Anna Williams, I believe she's called. She was promoting a book at the time, and I didn't know what I'd tuned into or turned the radio on when the car came on. And all I heard was this lady just discussing feelings, and everything she discussed and everything she mentioned just ticked every single box for me and how I was feeling. What's this? I pulled over and just listened to the end of the interview, and it wasn't until the very end that she actually used the word anxiety. And I then went and researched it a little bit, went to see my GP, eventually put on medication, which I've been on for 2.5 years now. I had therapy through the NHS, where I think I had 5 or 6 sessions, but actually talking to a therapist wasn't for me. Just like you say, medication isn't for you. Talking to a therapist wasn't for me, but I did sort of come away from it and opened up a little bit to my family at home and at work. And then more or less, really in the last kind of 6 months, I felt a lot more comfortable to sort of open up and talk to people, which I think is very, very important.
Yeah.
When I had my first brewing job, I was assistant manager in the bar, that there was a brew pub as well. So I was assistant manager in the pub, and I was head brewer. That was the brewer. I was the only person working the brewery, basically.
Yeah.
So I used to come in at 8 every morning, take in all the deliveries, do the brew, then go on the bar. So I was working basically from 8 a.m. till 3 a.m. Or late open in the pub, and the only one in the area as well, so it was generally fairly busy. And then you go home and you're like, right, okay, well I need to get, there's a possibility of 4 hours sleep here, and such a slim window. Like, right, I'm just going to turn my brain off and pass out. And it just never happened.
I think it's also the thing that a bit like, what we were saying, with this whole idea of, because you are this because there are these windows and they are smaller. They get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So you've got basically this thing where you say, right, I either sleep, which I definitely need, or I have an hour on my own where I can clear some stuff, where I can sit and have a beer or walk the dog or whatever. And you're like, right. And then it's just a juggling act of how much sleep do you need, and how much time do you need to just clear what you need to clear
I'm trying to find the balance between those
and
two.
just
So you
and if the time window is incredibly small to start with, so if it's not 12 hours, it's 6, and you're like, well, actually, I'd like to have an hour where I sit down, whether it's just have a cup of tea,
read a
put the
book.
telly on.
I'm the same. I mean, I got, with anxiety, still, I've been on medication now for about 2.5 years, but still, I find days where there's just, it can be anything, little things that just kind of just steady away, stack up, and you try and contain it, and then I'll just snap at the, I'm going to say the wrong person, in the wrong person, it's always someone who you love, you know, someone close, whether it's my dad, my brother, my wife, whatever, the kids. But I find once it stacks up, and then you kind of snap, but it gets to the point where my body, there's just too much to cope with, that all I feel is just tired, and all I want to do is sleep.
But then I have like a knock-on effect to like even like normal things like eating at like normal time. Like.
But going home and sort of get the kids to bed, and then, you know, I'm just tired, I want to sleep, so I'll go, you know, maybe get a couple of hours skip, and then you wake up, I feel refreshed. But then what am I going to do now? Because now's the time when I should be sleeping. And so then I'm struggling during the night, or even if I kind of have in my mind, I think the thing, I don't know if it's just me, that I try and see everything through to the end, which is why my anxiety really kicks in. Because I do worry about, you know, my kids growing up, and I worry about the business and all this kind of thing. But even little things, just try and see things through to the end. So if I'm going home, I don't know what's happening at home, but I'm on the way home from work, and it's like, right, this is what I want to do. See the kids, I'll go in the shower, and then I'll have me, you know, let's get the kids to bed, reading a book, blah, 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 blah. And if there's one little thing that just jinx it, that throws that off course, it messes it messes me up quite a lot, and I do just feel everything just drags out of me. And it's, you know, but it's only recently, in the last kind of maybe year of talking to people, and I did have therapy for a bit, but it didn't really work for me. But actually talking to people about it, talking to my wife, to my dad, to my brother at work, and just having the conversations where you can kind of present as much as possible to try and get some sort of understanding. Helped me massively.
Well,
really.
I think, I mean, you guys know my kind of sort of background, and, you know, it was quite a while ago now, before my son was born and stuff, but obviously, and I think it's why when I see stuff sometimes online, and you can see people, the warning signs. I mean, I get the odd down, the odd dip, and people who know me can see it in my tweets. They can see it gathering pace, and they'll like be going, "Dan, you all right?" But
It's normally when Everton are playing, isn't it?
normally, yeah. But it's enough to make anybody depressed. But I mean, for me, you know, obviously, I had to reach. You know, it now feels like it was a necessary thing. But I had to reach that point where I was about to do the worst thing, because that's the only way I could see me going, and I had no other way of going. So I did something a bit silly, and you know, I was very lucky that in my case I kind of bottled out at the last minute, and had a very supportive family who kind of put me into the care of a place where they could look after me. And for the first week and a half I was very, very ill, and I refused all medication, and I completely sort of lost my mind in a way. And
Can I ask, is this, how recent is this?
this was 10 years ago.
So just before you came with Dad,
yeah. And you know, I was told by my doctor that, you know, back then there was a couple of very easy diagnoses back then. You know, the world of bipolar had just started then. Whether it was snowing outside or raining or boiling hot, it was my little place where I could be there without everybody else, 7 in the morning, and I had routine. And when I get, as I say, because we haven't brewed for months, and all we've been doing is building, the routine is scattergun. It's all over the place. It's like, Dan, you need to come back at 6. So I'm not at home, I'm leaving the house before everybody gets up. And once that routine starts discombobulating, you do find yourself struggling to sleep, struggling to focus, struggling to stay calm, struggling not to have these little ups and downs, peaks and troughs, because you haven't got that. I'm there at that time, I turn that button on, and at that time that's finished. And I think you find that a lot of people you speak to, especially in this industry, when you ask them, especially from my end, which is the sort of avid homebrewer turned pro, or the blaggers as we like to call them, a lot of us all settled in it for the exact same reasons, that it was a physical job that gave us routine, and we're all a bit kind of, that goes there.
The same. I mean, sorry.
It's alright, I was going to say like the difference in hospitality is like my shifts will like differ massively from like week to week. So like in York, there's like the races some weeks, like for me and I'll be working like an 80-hour week. So like I tend to get my route for the week and then try and like make my routine at the start of it. Like because like some days like I don't know, say you go shopping on a Monday, like I won't be able to do that every week, so I've got to like change that. And I think a lot of people in hospitality like really struggle with trying to change their routine. Like I did, especially like a few months ago, I was just like all over the place, just going to work, going home, well going for a drink, then going home, going to sleep, and then just repeating. And I just got myself into like a massive like
It's easily done though, because I'm one for routine. I love routine. Like I say, at work, the brew process it depends on routine. For me, to produce consistent beers all the time, it depends on routine, and I love it. And I've always been about routine, but I do take that home with me. And like I was saying, the routine, and I need to change at the moment as well. But my routine at the moment is quite negative. But previous years I have had positive routines, like I say, when I go out running or I go to the gym and then really get into a good routine. But it just takes something just to throw me off and slip into a different routine, and then that becomes the norm, and it's very, very difficult. So I can't imagine what it's like on your side of things where...
because like on my day off I like to try and go and do something, because it'd be so easy just to sit at home and do like absolutely nothing, like literally just on your own. So now every day I get off I try and either like go see a friend or whatever, whereas like some people literally just like sleep the day away and then like waste it.
If you've been on close or something for X amount of days, the last thing you want to do, if you've been on free closes, or we had it at the club because we had obviously 4 AM license and stuff, and it's the easiest way to lose stuff. Is someone comes in and goes, I've done close like X amount of times or whatever, and everyone goes, have you? And you look at it and you go, oh yeah, sorry about that. And they're like, no, it's too late, I'm off.
But I think it's
because it just destroys people, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, I think what Katie was saying, that it is important not to. It is important to try and find some sort of routine, even if it's a different routine every week. But to plan it out and say, well, I'm not at work that day, but I do need to get out of the house. I do need to go and see people and speak to people, and whether it's talking about the bloody weather or whatever, or if anyone's comfortable enough to do this and sit and talk.
I also think
and share problems and I'm not, when I do, I talk more openly with my family than I ever have, and I'm talking you guys here, and there are other people within the industry who are aware of the kind of problems I have, and the more and more I can talk about it, I do feel better for it.
It was one of the things that actually my therapist brought up just about after the accident. I was seeing a step therapist for about 6 months, which kind of grotesquely turned into anything except the accident. Somebody's going, I don't think the accident's been the cause of this problem, has it? Like, it's probably been going on for a long time. That was what brought up a lot of my anxiety problems, really.
Really?
And he said.
So how long ago are we talking then?
So the accident was 2 years ago in September.
Yes.
So I started seeing a therapist the following February, I think. So it'd been sort of 4 or 5 months afterwards.
Was this for the NHS then?
Yeah. So I got redirected to this guy, came in, and I just kind of. So he said that in the first section, I didn't even mention the accident. It was like, he came in and went, right, okay, so what happened? I was like, okay. So I said this, and he was like, and I started talking about it. Well, I'll tell you what, let me just give you a bit of background. And then I spent like an hour and a half just ranting off about my employment history and various things like that, you know. And I got off, but it was something that he sort of brought up. Sort of said that, British culture is very much geared towards you don't talk about it. I was like, well, I remember even when I started Salt, the chef came through and I was sat in shorts in the back room one day, and he walked through and so I was wearing shorts, he saw my leg and he was like, oh, you having a tattoo removed? And I was like, no, I burned all the skin off both my legs a year or so ago. And he was like, oh shit, oh sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. I was like, no, it's not a problem. And there is the problem in that just kind of the culture is to not discuss it.
Yeah,
if something bad has happened, it's like, oh, don't bring that up, don't talk about it, let it pass. And I think it's really, really problematic, that, and especially when you get to a situation like this, that it's almost considered grotesque to talk about anxiety or depression. Right? Those are the things, 'cause it makes you
it's the
look
kind
weak.
of thing where I've had in the past where somebody has kind of said something to me they could see straight away that I need to relate, and
I'm a therapist,
and
not
there's
that.
something there, but the person who said it, I'm not going to name names, but the person who said it has then gone, oh, sorry, I forgot you're sensitive. And where do you go from there? Because that's the way it may be perceived, that I'm sensitive, but I'm not. I just worry about everything. So the beer we're brewing today, it's a recipe that myself, Colin, and Dan kind of came up with, and I know Katie's on board with it as well. We decided to do a 3% pale ale. The reasoning really we discussed it was. I think
the idea we wanted to talk. So the idea that you could go out, have a beer with your friends was the original idea behind it. We wanted it to be a case where people could go and use that time to discuss their feelings or just to be out and socialise with people. We wanted to make something that wasn't massively intoxicating, so we decided to go for a 3% pale, so that the time spent was honest and everyone could kind of use that sort of stuff.
The idea isn't to promote beer, it's to promote awareness for mental health, and we didn't want to put it in any small pack form, because we want to try and encourage people to go and enjoy it and open up and talk with friends like we are.
I think there's time for contemplation. And sitting with your dog and a book in a nice wingback chair in a pub by a cosy fire. But I think the first step is the sort of knowing that you have the ability to open up, and if that's helped by being in a social environment, which, let's face it, most of us, especially if you have anxiety and various other things, social environments can be quite difficult places to be and stuff like that. And I think the idea of something that's low ABV, that can be enjoyed, with friends, is the whole point. And it just comes back to this idea that there's always someone with a pair of ears, and that's what most people. That's all they need. They just, they need, the ability to talk and for someone to listen.
And I suppose from your point of view, Katie, you've seen it from the other side of the bar.
Yeah, definitely, and I think the fact that it's going to be cask only is a big thing as well, because I associate personally cask with sociable, high environments where especially pubs that I've worked in before, where I class some of the regulars as practically my family, and I'd like to think that anybody who walks through the door could feel the same, and I think that beer is a big reflection on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. The beer itself is going to be called Mind Games. We are going to be donating, I think, 10% of the profits to the charity Mind, who do a cracking job. Again, it's not about really promoting beer, so we wanted to just keep it nice and sensible. Do you want to talk about that in January?
Yeah, so, and our plan was as well, we want to release it in January, which for a lot of people can be a really hard time, sort of post-Christmas, everyone's a bit skinned, you don't feel like going out, it's, the weather can be bad and miserable. It's the idea of releasing sort of quite a hoppy 3% beer, something that's easy to drink, but that we encourage people to kind of make it out and make a social space.
Yeah, you do find there's a bit of a slump in people's well-being, I think.
Definitely low.
Around and certainly after Christmas, so this is where we thought it'd be a really good time to kind of get a message out that having people around you is probably the best tonic that you can kind of get if you're not feeling yourself, you know.
And it's got citra in it, which is lovely.
It's got citra in it, yeah, and mosaic as well.
And yeah.
Okay. We're not going there? Yeah. Cool, thank you guys.